For those who don't know me, my background is I've been keeping birds since I was 6 years old. Budgies all the way through, but toucans, macaws, lorries, I've had loads of different varieties. The only really type of bird I haven't kept is hummingbirds. You know, I had the opportunity at one point, but just didn't have the time and space, so I had to let them go. But my background is, say, over 47 years keeping birds, 24 years in the poultry industry, 3 years at Agriculture College doing poultry. I've worked in the UK and Canada, you know, in poultry farms, and I've done. This is November will be 20 years doing homeopathy and natural products. So I don't know everything. I'm learning every single day, and it's great to be able to deal with people with different varieties of birds because you're picking up so much information and knowledge. My focus on everything I do is taking stress off the birds. 99% of your problems with birds and the issues you have with them is stress. Food-wise, nutrition, environment, and also health. These are the three main areas I focus on. I put a little program together last year, November time. I've got probably the who's who of bird keepers and a lot of people in between who keep a vast variety of birds. And this year I started asking people, right, how have you got on the last couple of years? You know, some people have been with me 15 plus years, you know, using homeopathy and natural products and that. And so there was 15 guys stood out a mile with the results. From 8 to 15 years, they had great results year on year, virtually lost no birds at all, and were more than happy with the results over a good variety of birds. And I couldn't believe what I saw, and it really annoyed me because I deal with these people all the time. And I hadn't asked these questions. And asking the questions and finding out what their programs were, their feeding regimes, lighting programs, just how they work things out, it was like, wow, you know. And to be honest, I've stopped selling two of my products after speaking to these guys because I realised they're not necessary. You know, up there you'll see the vitamins, minerals, tea, and the Vital Spark. Maximmune. I've stopped promoting these and using them because of what these guys' results were and just how they were doing it. So I'll come on to that later on. But the three main areas I say is environment. Anything goes wrong with our birds, quite often we'll blame ourselves. What I can say is this year has been really bad for every type of bird. Not just borders, but every type of bird. And I blame the hot weather. The hot weather has stressed the birds out so much. There's things that we've seen in these birds that have been lying dormant for years, that hot weather and under stress has brought this out. Different health conditions that we've never seen for a long time have all of a sudden reared their ugly heads, and it's caused a lot of problems with breeding of birds this year. So you can't take all the blame this year because I say that hot weather for a consistent period of time, that long spell has done a lot of damage to birds just under stress. You know, because no matter what we try to do in our sheds, unless we're putting chillers in it, you know, we can't prevent the temperatures we've had this year. So that's been a big issue. But when we're talking about environment, the birds in the wild get a brand new environment every day. Every 5-10 minutes the wind blows, they fly to another perch, you know, they get a new environment. Whereas our birds are stuck in our cages, in our flights, and, you know, things build up there. So what we're looking to do is give the birds a new environment every day. Now, clean and clear checkmate. You know, I've been in the poultry industry, I've been in birds for a long time, I've seen so many different products. Virkin-S, anybody know Virkin-S?
Yeah.
My farm was the last farm, I had a 160,000 broiler farm, was managing that. My farm was the last farm that they tested Virkin-S out on. When it came onto the farm and I had all these things to do, it was like, right, I'm taking that up to the bird room. Took up to the bird room, experimented with my own birds at the same time, thought it was a great product. It is a great product. Went to the manufacturers, Antec, introduced myself and said, look, I'd like to promote this in caging every birds, falconry and zoos. Not a problem. So started to do that, and for a couple of years, yeah, great product, doing the job. Until I got a phone call from one of my friends, a pig farmer up north, and she's calling, I went and burnt all my pig's feet. I forgot to wash it down. And then you're getting phone calls, this is great stuff, it's taking the chrome off sinks. It's like, oh, a bit too corrosive, you know. You're using it as a water sanitizer as well at a small dose. But I took a step back from that because it was just too much damage could be done in the hands of idiots. So I was looking for something that was idiot-proof to use, and we came across. In fact, there was a chap that introduced me to Poultry Shield, and basically at dinner he says, "I'm told you're the man that knows everybody in the poultry industry." And I said, "Well, I don't know everybody, but the people who make decisions, yeah." So he says, "I've got this product, I'd like you to check it out." So it was on a few farms that I deal with, and I checked the product out, it looked good. And he says, "Look, I'll give you 5% of everything I sell." Sounds okay. So I phoned up my contacts and says, "This guy's going to be calling you, this product looks pretty good." So he went on to contact these people, and yeah, a good product. Sadly, he took the license off the manufacturer and went to someone else, and he cut it in half. And it was still working fine, and then he cut it in half again. And so I went back to the original manufacturer, and he managed to get the license back. And I says, "Right, I'm wanting this strong as possible. I'm a Scotsman, I hate the thought of sending water through the post, so I want this as strong as possible." So I went to the lab, and they says, "Right, there's your product." I says, "Right, okay. How do I know that's the strongest?" He says, "We thought you'd say that." So they made it 1% stronger, and basically it was like jelly. It wasn't staying together because it was, wasn't forming properly. So what we have is Clean and Clear Checkmate. Now there's 3 different ways people use it. Excuse me, I'm just going to have a little drink. There's 3 different ways people use it. If you've got a mite infestation, 100 mils per litre, spray everywhere. You don't have to take the birds out, but don't spray directly on the birds. It doesn't have to dry. It kills mites and eggs on contact. It kills viruses, bacteria, molds, spores, funguses. And the way it kills it just dehydrates them. It takes the positive ions on their bodies and that and dirt and grease, and it turns it negative. So they just break up and dehydrate. You see it going dark green. Now that's 100 mils per litre. It will also kill coccidiosis on the ground. And cocci is a big issue I have, so to be able to spray that and kill coccidiosis is great. The other way to use it is 20 mils per litre. You can spray up to 20 mils on the birds. Now what you do is, for cleaning as well, you spray it, wipe it, hot or cold water, leave it for 20 minutes. I always say to people, away and get a cup of tea, give it 20 minutes to start working. And what will happen is you come back, and on any surface, it wipes off. You're not scrubbing. The grounding dirt lifts, so you're just wiping it off. Again, it will kill mites and eggs at that level, but not as quick as at 100 mils per litre. So for cleaning, it's fantastic. So you're getting a new environment. A lot of people with chest problems and asthma, what they're doing is they're going into their sheds, and after 20 minutes they're getting wheezy and tight-chested, and that's them for the day. They can't go back in again sometimes. Spraying it at 5 to 10 mils, walking black, it doesn't matter if it hits the birds, the feed, the water, anything at all. Bringing the dust down, bringing the virus bacteria levels down, and they're in there for hours with no ill effects. I got a phone call from a Yorkshire woman. I'm not going to try to put the accent on, but she said, "I've lost my husband." That was the first thing she said. I said, "Excuse me?" "Yeah, you got your Clean and Clear Checkmate there, and he's up the shed now, and it used to be half an hour, and that was him for the whole day." He says, "He's up there for hours, I never see him." I think I've saved their marriage, personally. But, it's just to be able to see people who have got chest problems and asthma being able to enjoy their birds again, and animals as well, just by mist-spraying every day. So it's important that we keep the bacteria levels down in our birds, and to be able to spray something like that, and it's very economical every day, it's giving your birds a new environment. I had a chap last night phone me up just before I left, and he says, "Colin," he says, "I can't thank you enough." He says, "This Clean and Clear Checkmate's brilliant." He says, "I've had these perches for 10 years and they're like brand new now, And I'm thinking, I hope he's washed them over that 10-year period, but just the fact that he sprayed it on, he left them, and just 20 minutes later just gave them a wipe, and he said they're like brand new again, That's what it's about, is keeping our environment clean and fresh, and keeping it simple. The next area we focus on is nutrition. Now, nutrition's got to be 3 things. It's got to be palatable. If it's not palatable, the birds aren't going to eat it. It's got to be nutritious. If it's not nutritious, your birds are going to suffer. And it's also got to be digestible. So if it's not digestible, you might be putting the best nutrients in, but if they're not digesting it, the birds are getting nothing. So what we look at doing, I've always said a healthy gut is a healthy bird. There's so many pre and probiotics out there. And about 10 years ago, just over 10 years ago, a good friend of mine, the guy's a multi-millionaire, he's a bit of a recluse, and he keeps all varieties of birds. An amazing setup. And he phoned me up and says, "Colin, I've taken every pre and probiotic on the market, and I've sent it across to Switzerland for testing. He says, right, how did mine get on? He says, well, they had to test yours twice. He says, don't worry, I didn't pay for it, we hadn't tested twice. But every pre and probiotic out there, they're trying to add vitamins, minerals, trace elements, electrolytes and all the rest. They were, with one application, they were active in the gut for 3 to 4 hours, and then they were resorting back to the normal flora and fauna. He says, yours was active in the gut for 7 to 8 hours. It was so far ahead of the rest of them, they wanted to check it twice. So that was fantastic feedback. You know, I'm sure it wasn't cheap from testing them all, but this is why Top S basically sets the gut up to produce billions of good bacteria. So what's happening is the food's going in. If you're feeding rubbish food, you'll still see results. It's setting up with billions of good bacteria. So what's happening is all the nutrients that go in are being stripped out of the food, so the bird has the nutrients to do what it's doing, whether it's feeding chicks or going through the molt. But say to put that on as a sprinkle, it's just like a light dusting of pepper. Ideally, just before you put it in. A lot of people are using pepper shakers just to put it on just before the food goes in. Every animal and bird that touches transforms it. I've got a lot of people with dogs and cats with skin conditions, and some of them are paying silly money a month on steroids for their dogs and cats. And they go into the Top S, and I usually recommend to put things like tin of sardines. If you've got a bad skin condition or a dog or cat, half a tin of sardines a couple of times a week gets the oil into them, gets really good nutrients into them. But with the Top S, what you find is before the end of the month, they're off all the steroids, and they're looking absolutely fantastic. Coat's great, skin's great. On birds, I put in here that all creatures health check makes no medical. It takes no responsibility for unwrung birds, due to accelerated growth rate. Every year I still get people, especially British, phoning up. I couldn't get rings on my greenies and my red poles. You read the label. Yeah, but I didn't believe it. Birds will leave the nest 3 to 5 days early, far better feathered. What you're finding is the droppings go lighter in colour, drier, and there's no smell. So what you've also got to do is ring your birds 2 days early, because sometimes if you don't, you've missed them, and especially British birds.
So with that then, you'd feed that daily?
Every day.
So obviously like now, where we're not giving egg food every day, you just
put it on the greens.
On just normal seed.
I wouldn't put on seed because it's too fine. What some guys are doing is they're putting a tiny amount in finger drawers and they're finding that they're taking it from that. But I would put it on greens. Just moisten the greens a bit and just a light dusting, and it's getting into the bird system. Not a problem. Is anybody using this just now?
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on it?
I like it.
Does the job?
Yeah.
Yeah. Does the job?
Job all right,
Grant. No, I say I'll put money back guarantee in that, because if you use it, you see results. And I say even on poor food, you see results. So when you put on really good nutrition, which I'll come on to later, you see a massive difference. This year I've had more and more pigeon boys. I've been dealing with pigeon boys for 15 plus years, but I've had people come on to it because we've got a remedy for young bird sickness. I've had more pigeon boys come on, and they've come back and they've just gone nuts over the Top S, because they check their dropping boards every day and they can't believe the difference in the birds. They can't believe how much down's coming out of the birds quicker. They're coming to the molt a lot quicker. So that's been encouraging. But it's not easy when you're dealing with people who tell nobody else what they're doing, because it's almost like a secret society almost, I'm not telling you what I'm using because, I've got the edge on you, So this year it's changed a bit, which is good. So nutrition-wise, again, I'll go on to that a little bit later on, just the different options we have for nutrition. The other area we deal with is health. Now, when a bird's under stress, whatever's inside it multiplies. I remember a microbiology class in college, and the lecturer came in with a pigeon in a basket. Now he took the pigeon out of the basket and he says, right, we're going to find out what bacteria is growing in this bird's mouth. So he takes a swab, swabs the bird's mouth. He has a petri dish, a little glass petri dish with growth medium. He rubs the swab on it, he puts the lid on, he gets a magic marker and writes A. Now he continues walking around the class with this pigeon tucked under his arm as he's doing his lecture. And then he goes, right, 10 minutes up, we'll find out what bacteria is growing in this bird's mouth. And I'm thinking, you did that 10 minutes ago, it just seems a bit pointless. So he gets another swab, swabs the bird's mouth, puts the bird back in the basket, gets another petri dish, wipes it on, puts the lid on, and writes B. He says, right, when we come back on Friday, this was the Monday, he said, we come back Friday, we'll see what bacteria is growing. So Friday we get in, and he brings the 2 Petri dishes out. He's got Petri dish A, there's a little bit blue, there's a little bit green, so we look that up. Okay, there's Staphylococcus, there's Staphylococcus, okay, that's fine. He gets B, every colour of the rainbow. World War III had broken out in this. And there's Staphylococcus, there's Staph aureus. Wait a minute, we've identified E. coli, we've identified half a dozen other things. Now we thought that bird was relaxed under this guy's arm, as he's walking around doing his talk. But the stress that bird was under being held for 10 minutes was enough for everything in that bird's body to multiply. So when we talk about birds under stress, everything multiplies. So when we've had problems this year with birds not breeding properly, when you imagine all that heat that we've had for such a long time, that's caused a lot of stress on the birds, which everything's multiplied. Now what kills your bird is what multiplies the quickest. And quite often the 2 things that multiply the quickest is cocci. Cocci's got a brain of some sorts that says, there's stress in this bird, I need to multiply to get eggs out to get into another host before this host dies. And so that's why birds start to go light, because they're stressed out and the cocci's multiplying, so the bird eats and eats and eats, and then the cocci's taking more and more and more because it's laying eggs, it's going out to hopefully get another host. And that's just the way it happens. Other things that multiply are things like megabac, scour, sometimes they get enteritis. All these things multiply at the same time, but what takes over the bird is what multiplies the quickest. That's why, in times of stress, you'll get birds going light, sometimes just after the breeding season, sometimes pre-breeding season. When the chicks come out, they're under stress, they're trying to feed themselves, there's coccidiosis on the grounds. That's why our birds go light, because there's cocci there available, and they're taking it in, and then under stress. So all these times of stress is when you start getting issues with the birds. So what we've managed to do over the years is get remedies by working with people. We look at symptoms. When you have a bird die or something and you send it to the lab, when we were in the poultry farms, if we didn't get a bird to the lab within an hour, they didn't want it, because they couldn't identify what killed the bird, because within that hour it's usually died off. So we used to have to get birds within the hour to the lab, and then they would be able to tell us exactly what it was. Again, 9 out of 10 times with the symptoms, on the ground, again going into the poultry sheds, the smell, the water consumption, feed consumption, looking at the droppings, these were all telltale signs of what the issues were. But we just needed it confirmed with the lab, so we used to take birds that were on their last legs with a condition to the labs. Took 35 minutes to get to Edinburgh. We'd take the birds, lay them off there. Within a couple of hours they'd phone back, yeah, it's this that's the problem, this is what you need to do the job. So if you're sending birds away to people and they've been dead for hours, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. They'll come back and tell you, oh, there's a wee bit cocci, there's a wee bit this, a wee bit that, but they're guessing. What killed the bird is usually dead. So, we go on symptoms. Going light, a classic going light is a bird sitting at the dish, eating and eating and eating, sometimes grinding the food, not even eating it, and then sitting, ruffled up a bit. Scour, enteritis, you've got your respiratory issues, your wheeze and things like that. We usually go on symptoms, and there's a homeopathic remedy for that. Now, it's very, very economical to use homeopathy. There's a litre bottle, okay? What you're talking about with the remedies is 2 mils per litre. What you do is you knock the bottle 30 times, right, on the day of use. And what this does is it activates the homeopathy. If you put it to your ear, you hear it fizzing away. Okay, that's you activating the homeopathy. Draw up 2 mils, just a 2 mil syringe. Okay. Draw up 2 mils and put it into a litre of water. Right? Let that litre of water sit for half an hour. Homeopathy multiplies at full strength. What we'll do is we'll go into the farms and do ammonia for cattle. And what we'll do is, let's say there's 4 troughs for 200 beasts. We'll put 10 mils per head in for the cattle into the troughs. And as they're drinking out of that, it's multiplying at full strength for 6-7 days, and then it just dissipates. So We'll put that in, and as the cattle are drinking, it's multiplying. With the 1 litre bottle, you put 2 mils in. Now that's multiplied in that. Now, say you use 3 litres to do your birds. What you do is you take that 1 litre, and whether it's a 3 litre container, top it up to your 3 litres. Okay? Go around all the drinkers, fill them up, leave something at the bottom of the bottle, top that up to your 3 litres again. That's your next day's water. It's multiplying at full strength. So you've only used 2 mils. Put it in the fridge, and it'll last you 2 years, no problem at all. Now, homeopathy works in different ways. Every animal and bird's different how long the effect lasts for. You know, whether you're doing a stress reducer or you're doing 307 for going light, Coxie Megaback. You know, it might last 3 months, it might last 6 months. So what we say is you've got a minimum of 3 months. So once you've done the 2 mils into the litre and multiplied that up and done that for the 5 days, 3 months later, just do the same thing, and you're keeping the immune system on, switched on. Whether you've got chicks being fed or all this, it doesn't matter. It's not like an antibiotic that you're suppressing and you're sometimes you're wiping out everything, you know, or most things in the birds. You're switching the immune system on. Now, I get phone calls from people all the time, and they're buying birds of all varieties off of some of these top guys. They're bringing them home, and they're not getting to breed with the birds. They're either going downhill, they're crashing, because whatever they've got them on, you know, you can have your birds on antibiotics all the time, and your birds will stay at a certain level. But when these birds move on to someone else, what you find is they're crashing. They're just not staying at that same level unless you keep them on the same program, which most people aren't doing. So what we're doing is we're switching the immune system on. So if you sell a bird to someone else and it's had 307 or it's been wormed, or you know you've got done combined scaroenteritis because you've had an issue in the past with that, when you sell a bird on, that immune system's up there and it will just gradually wither down. You're not going to get a crash. Whereas if you buy, you know, a lot of the guys, the pigeon boys and that, some of the top guys are on antibiotics every other day, you know, and they judge the day of the week by what colour the water is, you know, and that's quite scary because when these birds go on to other people, they're not getting them to breed. And these guys know that the birds have a limited shelf life, you know, doing that. And again, pigeon boys are putting their birds under more stress than what we do, you know. So you can switch the immune system on for all these different things, and every shed has its own issues. So if you've got a problem respiratory, let's look at the symptoms, let's get a remedy, switch the immune system on, you know. If you've got a bird, say, going light, birds that aren't well don't drink as much, so what you do is you take the solution that's made up and put a couple of mils over the throat, you know, and what you find is I quite often get phone calls 4 or 5 hours later. Wow, I can't believe the difference in that bird. It's stopped gasping, or it's no longer at the seed dish, and they move on. You know, one chap phoned us up and he asked for 307. He had Gloucesters, and a couple of weeks later I was at a show all the way up Portnocky, and I'm setting my stand up, and he comes across and says, "Colin, come and have a look at this bird." So they've all been judged in this, rosettes all around this Gloucester cock, a nice cock. He says, "Remember I phoned you 2 weeks ago?" Aye. He says, "That's the cock, I thought I was going to lose it." You know, it's all about results. You need to get results. You know, if you don't get results, why would you pay for something, you know, if it doesn't work? So again, it's by working with people. This year, for 15 plus years, I've asked the pigeon boys, give me a bird that has died with the symptoms of young bird sickness and we'll give you a remedy. So it's taken me 15 years, but we've got a bird this year. A boy phoned me up and says, "Colin, I've got I've got young bird sickness, classic, you know. They're throwing up, you know, they've got problems with retaining water in the crop, they're skittery, they're getting dizzy, you know, the classic symptoms." So a bird had just died. I went up to Dundee, I met him, I got the bird, I sent it down to the lab. They got it the next day, got a remedy made up, back the following day, took it up to him. He put it over, he had 15 birds, he'd lost a couple since I spoke to him, and 15 birds with the classic symptoms. He put it over the throat and put it around the water, all his birds, and by the next day, right as rain, never lost another bird. To date, we've had 7 studs with over 120 birds who have had young bird sickness. They put it over the throats, they've given it to the birds and lost no more birds, which to me is fantastic. But because of that, they've all come on and says, "Right, what other products you got?" And again, I've had pigeon boys using the stuff for years, but as I say, they don't tell people, you know. So they've come on to the Top S, they've come on to the Clean and Clear Checkmate, and they've come back and went, wow, you know, pigeon boys check their dropping boards every day to see the condition of the birds. The droppings, I've said, will go lighter in colour, drier, no smell, and they'll be a little bit smaller. And they've come back and said, I can't believe that, you know, the condition of the birds, they're flying through the moult. It says, it's almost like they go in now, some of them, and they say it's like, it's a carpet a down because there's so much feather, you know, down coming out of the birds as they're going through the moult, you know. And again, the clean and clear check, Mike, there was one guy put a post up that I've had for a few years, and he says, this is my shed, it's 3 years old. And somebody made a comment, wow, it's like brand new. He says, yeah, I've used this for the last number of years, clean and clear check, Mike. You know, he uses it every day. You know, he wipes his perches down, you know. Some of these guys are meticulous, you know, and just the way they treat the environment for the birds, you know. And again, it's an environment that we're walking into as well. So you've got to look at what we control and make sure we do the best job. It doesn't have to be hard work. It's just all about keeping simple methods and doing simple things correct. Now this year, I'm bringing out what I'm calling the 4 Seasons program, because these 15 guys, basically, the nutrition they were feeding was phenomenal. It was simple, it was fresh. They didn't use egg food, any of them at all. They made their own, and they didn't use any additives or vitamins, you know, anything at all like that. They were using homeopathic remedies to switch the immune system on. They were using the clean and clear for their environment, and they were using the top S every day for the healthy gut. So when you look at nutrition, what's egg food? Bakery byproducts, correct? Plus egg, dried egg, which you don't put water on it and it comes to life again. And it's got additives, it's got colouring, and it's got preservatives. And quite often if you look at the preservatives, it's an embalming fluid, you know. And you look at dog foods, they've got an embalming fluid on it. You know, that's why it can last so long, because it's an embalming fluid they've sprayed over it, which is quite scary because that's going into the bird system. So what I've always said is, every single egg that's laid from every variety of bird, the chick is always bigger than the yolk. Correct? Every variety, the chick is always bigger than the yolk. So you look at the nutrients in a yolk, and you look at a germinal disc with a few cells on it, that when it's fertilised, the cells multiply, the blood vessels go around the yolk, it absorbs the yolk, and the nutrients are able to make it bigger than itself. That's phenomenal. Now, you look at the white, which goes round. The white doesn't have anything to do at all with the development of the chick. The white is only there to keep the yolk in the centre, because if that yolk went to the side, bacteria would be attracted to it because it's such a good growth medium, and it's also there for gas exchange at the end. That's the only reason the white's there. But what you've got there is phenomenal essential and non-essential amino acids. That combined with the yolk is phenomenal nutrients. Now, you look at the biggest bodybuilders in the world, gorillas. Protein, it's plant-based amino acids. You know, they're not hunting around looking for meat. They're on all about, you know, they'll have insects and that. But insects, again, is amino acids. So what they're getting is plant-based amino acids. So what we're trying to feed our birds, to me, is filler. You know, you buy egg food, it's filler. You know, most of it is wasted. Whereas a lot of these guys, and again, I told them years ago, wheat is the source of your bakery byproducts. Now, what would you rather have? Would you rather have a TV dinner that's been processed and just looks like mush on your plate? Or would you rather have roast beef and Yorkshire pudding, potatoes and vegetables all freshly made? Which one's the most nutritious? The one that's been processed and been sitting for a while, or the one that's fresh? You know, I know which one I'd have every time, you know. But what we're feeding our birds quite often is filler. Now, there's so many different ways to feed birds, and there's probably a different way for every single person who keeps them. You know, I use this, I use that, I use the next thing. But what we've got to look at is, sometimes it's convenience, but convenience comes at a price, you know, and it comes at a price in our pockets, and it also comes at a price for our birds. Now, I remember years ago being able to breed with birds that were 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, no problems at all, cocks filling eggs, hens laying. Now, you're lucky if you're getting 2, 3, 4-year-old birds that are doing the job. But it all starts with the hen feeding the youngsters. If you give them wheat, again, the best way to feed something nutritious is to start the germination process. whether you soak it for half an hour and then let it dry, leave it a day, or soak it for a couple of days, you're starting the germination process. So your plain canary, I've stopped using plain canary, even in canaries, because what happens is its nutritional value is there. And what it says and what it is, I don't believe it, because the seed isn't the same size as what it used to be, and I don't think the quality is there. And quite often when you sprout it, it takes too long for me to start sprouting. The nutrients aren't there. Whereas wheat, the nutritional value compared to the plain canary is there. But when you sprout it, it changes with the germination process and the nutritional value goes up. Plus you're also getting more moisture in the birds at the same time. So instead of feeding your egg food, which is bakery byproducts and your dried egg, what these guys were doing is they were soaking a week. Some were just soaking it for 3 or 4 hours and then leaving it a day and then putting it into it. Some were soaking it for 2 days, Some were soaking it for 1 day, but they were all using wheat as their source, the main source. Some of them were using groats. Groats is good as well, but groats is too starchy, and you can put too much weight on the birds too quick. So this is where the wheat, barley's good as well, but wheat to me is the number one out of the three of them, because you're getting the wheat germ, you're getting all these nutrients that you're not getting in your plain canary. And again, you're not getting it in the egg food either. But what you're doing is, when the seasons happen, there's more insects. There's always insects around, whether they're dead or dormant. So the birds can always get availability to insects. But when the insects multiply and they start breeding, the nutrients in insects are phenomenal. I was looking at a study the other week there, and they're saying humans should start looking at eating insects as opposed to meat, because the nutrients in insects are phenomenal. So maybe, I'm a celebrity, get me out of here eating all these things isn't as daft as what it seems, because the nutrients, that's in that is phenomenal. And this is why the birds switch to more feeding insects to get the youngsters, because when a chick's in the nest, it's a survival mechanism for the bird. It needs to get that chick out of that nest as quick as possible, or else it's going to be eaten. It's survival. They want to get the birds up and out before a predator gets it. So that's why they go on to more nutritious food, like insects, which accelerates the growth rate. So instead of having insects, which if you feed that, it'd take a long time to go and hunt them, or to buy them in as insectivorous food, you've got egg. Now people say, but egg, you've got salmonella. You can go to the highest mountain and find salmonella. You can take a swab and find salmonella. Seagulls are the worst carriers of salmonella. I've never heard Sir David Attenborough say once, and the seagulls didn't breed this year because of salmonella. They breed every year, Salmonella is not an issue in egg food, unless you're leaving it around for a long period of time. But if you're feeding fresh egg every day and taking it out, there should be no issue. And you've got so many essential and non-essential amino acids in that. It's phenomenal. And I say, it doesn't take long to boil an egg. In fact, the 15 guys, one of them fried eggs. He was frying eggs every morning, so he fried eggs for himself and gave them to the birds. Another boy scrambled them, and the other 13 boiled them. Now, my biggest problem is, over the years, I've had more boiled eggs on the ceiling than anything else, because I'll go out to put them on, go out to the birds and forget about them, and come in to find them on the ceiling, But it is a simple food. It's a cheap food, and it's got super nutrients. So, okay, I don't have time, that's why I use the egg food. You're not doing the birds a service by doing that. You want fresh nutrients. What I do for my own egg food is, I'll do a little bit groats soaked for 2 days. I'll do wheat soaked for 2 days. And again, once you set it up, it's easy. It just flows. I also use a little bit of grated carrot, and I'll use spinach. Now, spinach is phenomenal. It's got, in one leaf of spinach, it's got enough vitamin K for us humans for half our daily dose in one leaf. So you imagine the nutrients in spinach that, a couple of leaves a day for a bird is phenomenal nutrients. I don't mix it all up. The birds have got nothing better to do all day but go up and down, up and down. You see the wild birds, they're all over the place looking for food and coming back to the nest. We make it lazy for the birds because, we want to ground it down to the nth degree. I just put the wheat in, I put a little bit, it's all on a little tray, and the birds come and take it themselves. And 9 out of 10 times, everything's gone, And they're getting nutrients in. And you see the difference in the growth rate. But what you're doing is, when you're feeding that bird as a chick, you're setting that bird up for the rest of its life. Now, are you going to add filler into it, or are you going to put proper nutrients into it? So when you're feeding the good nutrients all the time, that bird's in tip-top condition. you put the top S on it, it's setting the gut up with billions of good bacteria. With this, I'm not trying to get vitamins, minerals, trace elements, electrolytes into it. I'm purely wanting to set the gut up with the dead yeast and a couple of enzymes. All we're doing is setting up the gut so it can produce billions of good bacteria. That's why it's active for so long, because it's setting itself up and it's going. So if you're using it every day, you're going to see results every day, and the bird's going to have a super healthy gut. Again, when it comes to the different seasons, we need to look at changing the way we feed our birds. Birds need to be fed for breeding. After they're breeding, there's still plenty of availability of insects and that. The birds need to build themselves up, going through the molt. They need to build themselves up to go through a bit of a lean spell. And they also need to be switched on again for breeding. So we're looking at changing diet slightly. We can't change it too much, because what we've done is, especially borders, you put so much feather on the birds. That has to be maintained, And what people don't realise is, we'll put so much feather on the birds, we've increased the size. We haven't really increased the size of the stomach that much. So when the birds are taking nutrients in, it's not as if they can take more in to maintain what we've given them. We have to look at what we're giving them, super nutrients, that they get it so that they maintain themselves properly. Sometimes they struggle going through the molt. Sometimes, you've got issues with feather problems, If they're not getting the nutrients, they're going to have issues with these things. So it's feeding it at the right time with the right products. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring a list out of super nutrients that are usually cheaper than what you're buying just now. And then the next rung down. What people have to then do is look, what's convenient for me, what's feasible for me, and what's best for the birds. They say we control everything the birds eat, so they stand or fall by what we do. So we've got to look at keeping it simple for ourselves, but keeping it fresh and keeping it super nutrients. It's not rocket science. If it was rocket science, I wouldn't be here. But it's got to be simple, because I use it myself. And I'm a Scotsman. I like to get value for money. So a bag of plain canary is £16 plus. A bag of wheat's £10 for 25 kilos. Which one do I use? The one that I think is rubbish and doesn't sprout well, or else the nutrients that are in the wheat. And people say, "Oh, my birds won't eat this." You put it down to the birds and give it time. And sometimes with smaller birds with the wheat, just break it up a bit. Once they're into it, that's it.
What about just the normal soak seed, like what we use?
Normal soak seed, yeah, definitely. When you soak seed, you're changing the combination. You're starting the germination process, which, there's different chemical reactions going in, and that's good, because you're getting better nutrients. So yeah, I would say if you're soaking seed or not soaking seed, the best option is soaking seed. There's an example. We're talking about the homeopathy there. Aniseed.
Yeah.
To me, aniseed is just something that attracts the birds to food. You could have rancid food, put aniseed on it, and the birds will come to it. They might get a taste and not like it, but it attracts them to it. Conditioning seed to me is a waste of time. When you look at what the birds eat out of that conditioning seed, there's an awful lot left. I'd rather see people using straight seeds. Give them a few choices. Straight seeds, is better than just putting a whole mix in that the birds will mix around. The only thing that null and voids homeopathy when you're using it is aniseed. So if you're using conditioning seed when you've got the homeopathy in the water, it'll null and void it. I had a chap recently that had a bullfinch. He only had about 12 birds, but he had a bullfinch that was gasping. And we tried different remedies. We tried the combined respiratory, nothing. Right? We tried herpes, nothing. We tried mycoplasma, nothing. And it was just in conversation after the fourth remedy. It's like, his other birds were looking fantastic as well. He did them all at the same time. But just in conversations, I give them conditioning 3 times a week. He says, got aniseed in it? Yeah. He says, right, null and voids the homeopathy. So he stopped feeding it, put the combined respiratory over, and within 2 days the bird stopped gassing. So that's the effect that aniseed has on homeopathy. But again, when it comes to breeding, birds are switched on by 3 things. They're switched on by lighting, increasing light, the availability of food, and their own body weight. Birds are triggered on by their own body. If your birds are overweight, they'll still breed, but they won't breed as well as if you're bringing them in, And this is why sometimes hens will go to nest, they'll come off, because they're just they're not at their fighting weight, they're just overweight, and so it affects the condition of the bird for breeding. Lighting. The birds are stimulated by light. I get phone calls every year by people of all types of birds, and they'll say, my cockbirds are sterile. Right, there's two questions I ask them. One, are you using liquid calcium? And quite often they are, and it's to the letter, and they've turned their cockbirds sterile. Cockbirds don't need calcium, and what it does is it locks the system up. Leave it a few weeks without the calcium and they'll come back into cycle. But quite often their infertility problems is due to using too much calcium, and the bird doesn't have a choice to drink it or not drink it, and it's going into the system. The other thing is lighting. If you go over 14 hours light, you're overstimulating the birds. And this is one of the issues I have with people is they have the lights on, the same time all year round. Not so much with canaries, but with other birds, they have the lights on all year round. And if you've got more than 14 hours light, the pituitary gland's going like this. They're coming in and out of cycle, and the birds don't know what they're doing. Hens are coming off, laying eggs coming off, chicks coming off, because they're being overstimulated. 14 hours light should be your maximum. Anything past that, people say, oh, but I need to see my birds at 6 o'clock in the morning before I go out, and I need to see them at 11 o'clock at night. And they've got them on for all these hours, and they wonder why they're not getting good results, Fertile, infertile, everything's different. What you need to do is, a bird takes light, the difference between night and day for a bird is 100 lux. So say this was sitting at 160 lux with a light meter. If we turned this down to 60 lux, the bird would think it was darkness. Even though we could still see fine, the bird would take that as darkness and it wouldn't be stimulated. So what we're saying to these guys is, right, what to do is turn your bird lights off for 4 hours, during the day. So they're getting a rest period and they're not being stimulated for that 14 hours a day. And what you find is the birds will settle down and then the cocks will come back into cycle again and there's no issues. So lighting is one of these things that stimulates. And again, you can bring your birds, the hens and cocks, they're like little machines. We can turn them on and off with what we do to them. Whether it's lighting, the availability of food, and just getting them into that fighting weight. Now, for years, I used to go around all the boys round about in the villages round about me, from 6 years old up. When I think about it, a 6-year-old going around all these old boys, it would be frowned upon. Oh, what's that young guy doing in these sheds? I was probably fortunate when it growing up, because people didn't think like that back then. So I was able to be like a little sponge learning off these boys. I used to think the pigeon boys knew the most, followed by the canary and British boys, followed by the budgie boys and the foreign boys, until I got to college and I realised these pigeon boys, they would try anything to get an age, and most of it was nonsense, but they still are the same. But one of these boys I used to go into had phenomenal results every single year. I used to go into with parakeets. I used to have the Burks, he used to have the Splendids, he used to have the Rosellas. He had just aviaries of all these birds. And a week before he wanted to get his birds started for the breeding, he'd put little dishes of hemp into each one. And he would do that every day up until the birds started to go down. Now, I didn't realise at the time, but hemp is a phenomenal food. The protein in it, the amino acids, is brilliant because it's such a good source and it's so easy absorbed. So what I've been doing for the last few years is hemp into my budgies, hemp into the canaries. And the difference, what it does is it triggers the birds saying there's food available. There's availability of feed. Plus it puts a bit of weight on the birds as well.
Do you soak the hemp as well then?
You can do. For smaller birds, yes. But for the budgies, no. They'll just crack it, no problem. I should really, because it is better nutrients, but I'm only doing it for one purpose, And if I wasn't lazy, I would soak it. But certainly smaller birds, soak it for a day, leave it a day, and then put it in. But that's switching the birds on. That little seed with all the nutrients in it is switching the bird on and increasing the body weight by saying, oh, great, fantastic, We do need to put our birds to a little bit of a lean spell, but not as drastic as some people think. Because, it triggers the mechanism, the birds, for breeding. So again, when this comes out, it'll be optional what you do, but it's simple steps. And quite often it'll be what you're already using. But we can turn the birds on more effective. So instead of some birds coming in later than other, we can have them all coming in at the same time because they're under the same program. Simple as that. Has anybody got any questions? No, good, thank you. No. It's not rocket science, it really isn't, but we need to make sure that when we're playing God to the birds, we give them a clean environment every day. We give them the right nutrients so they can survive from day old, they're getting the proper nutrients. And we need to make sure health issues, we sort them out. For years, the pigeon boys have used every antibiotic under the sun. What they'll find is their sick birds will pick up a little bit, and then what they'll do is they'll crash again, and then they just kill them, you know. And there's so many guys going out the hobby of all variety of birds because they're not getting results. Now the pigeon boys, they got to the stage that they're not even using antibiotics. As soon as a bird goes sick, bye-bye, we don't want you, you know. And they're costing themselves a fortune. If you've got an issue in your shed, you want to get to the bottom of it. You don't want to just kill it because that's not healthy enough. Why did that bird grow sick, and what's the problem, you know? So you tackle the environment, you tackle the nutrition, but you've got to get to the bottom of the health issues. And what we've managed to do this year is we've come out with, for the pigeon boys, 3 specific remedies with 3 different issues in it. You know, you're going to have covering all the things that cause your bird's problem in 3 remedies. So for 5 days you're doing this 3, leave a day or 2, 5 days you're doing this 3, 5 days you're doing this 3. You know, we can do specific things on their own, but there's now 3 remedies they can use at once. So we want birds to be bulletproof. The problem is they're taking their birds to fly. The birds are looking fine. They've got birds that are sick in the shed. The birds they put to fly are fine. They're putting them into a stressful environment. They're mixing with other birds. They're eating corn that's been feces on it from other birds. They're drinking water that's been, you know, soured by other issues as well, you know. And then they're flying, stressed out, coming back, and then they're no good for nothing, you know. So what they've got to do is, a lot of the guys are now using stress reducer, and they're finding that their birds are coming back. Instead of being stressed out in these cages when they're going away, the bird's sitting there saying, all right, it's just relaxed, you know. It's not got the same stress, so the bacteria is not building up in the bird. So they've seen a big difference with that. Some of the boys that keep their birds in, you know, they put the stress reducer on. Instead of going in and flying all over the place, they're able just to go up and just pick a bird up now, you know, and the difference is night and day for them. You know, the stress reducer is the difference of walking a bull round a ring or not walking the same bull round the ring, you know.
Before a canary for a show though, and you give them the stress reducer.
Probably a week before, yeah. Stress reducer, and what you find is, again, it's a 2 mils, that's all I use. It lasts for 3 months minimum. So, you know, for the show season, you've probably covered your birds.
And through molt you give them.
Through the molt as well, and to be honest, through breeding as well, because it's a stressful time, you know.
And what would you give them after a show so they build them up so they've been on something? Nothing.
Nothing. If you're using the top S every day, it's going to be stripping all the nutrients in
And
it.
again, like say for pigeon men, before they breed, they actually use the 3 in 1 or 4 in 1 egg where they clear them out for cocktails.
Yeah. What they'll do is they'll do the program, and then every 3 months you're doing the same thing.
And
But
you suggest doing that to the canaries as well then?
yeah. What the 15 guys were using, I've got a Coxie wormer there. You can't switch Coxie on twice. 307 is Coxie Megaback, right? Every variety of birds that has the same symptoms, I'm not allowed to make medical claims, but
Yeah.
the birds, 5 to 6 hours, I'm getting phone calls back. Wow, what a difference! And they just go on as a preventative. You know, if
So
you
was that then presented? I can't pronounce it. How would you use that then?
every 3 months I use it.
You give it your birds
Yeah.
every 3 months.
It was interesting. A friend of mine, he lives about an hour and a half away from me. He phoned us up and says, "Colin, I've just come back from holiday and all my birds are scouring all over the place." So I went up to him, had scour enteritis combined. We put over the birds, the worst ones we put over the throat. The next day, I hadn't lost another bird. And he phoned me up and says, "Look, there's still 1 or 2 birds that are sitting just not right, and they're, you know, classic going light. You know, I noticed 1 or 2 when I was there, but we were doing the combined scour enteritis to sort that out." So he says, "Can you send me up 307? So he did that, and he'd heard me talking about, you know, every 3 months. So what he did was, he used 2 litres every day. So every Monday, he was adding 1 litre, 1 mil to this 2 litres, but it was continuously a little bit, so he was topping that up every day. And it wasn't until about 10 months later he phoned up and says, "Colin, I've just realised I haven't lost a single bird in 10 months. You know? And so what he was doing is he was keeping it going constantly, whereas doing it every 3 months had the same effect because you were switching the immune system on. You know? It's a classic, we know every animal and bird's different because when we use the stress reducer, I've had dogs that, you know, one place I went to do a talk to an agility club, and this one woman came up and says, look, I've got a Rottweiler bitch, I've got a few Rottweilers and Shepherds. This one Rottweiler bitch jumps at the shadows from the TV, and we have to throw her out, out of the room because she just goes nuts. So they bought the stress reducer, put 5 mils over the throat, rather than put it in the water for all the rest of the dogs. They put a drench of 5 mils on the Saturday night. Sunday night they sat down to watch telly, and they both looked at each other and says, something different. The dog didn't move for just over 3 months, and then it started to wear off and come back. So, when you're talking about your cats and dogs for Halloween, do it the week before Halloween.
Stress reduced, that's calm the birds even for a show.
Even for a show, yeah. It's not going to dope them out. They're still going to be active in that. Sorry? Do I have?
Have you got anything that does that?
For you or for the birds?
No, for the birds, I don't get stressed.
No. Stress reducer. Does the job. And I say, a lot of the guys, I've got a few guys for Islewhite and the Aaron and that, when they go to show, it's sometimes a 2-day show, it's a 4-day show between ferries, and they get back and their best birds are sitting fluffed up.
Yeah.
So I've got them all on stress reducer now, and they say that you wouldn't even know they left the shed. That's the difference in the birds. So rather than just showing your best birds and struggling to breed with them, they're getting them to breed all the time. No issues. So, but again, it's working with people to find out these things and how it's going for them. But I say every shed's different. Like every farm's different. The good thing about what we do is I put a money back guarantee in the clean and clear check mate and the top S, because you see results.
Yeah.
But the homeopathic remedies, I would do the same for them, but the problem is that some people think if they sit on a shelf they should work, and they don't, and you've no control over how people use them. But we go in the farms, say for example, if a farmer wants to vaccinate all his cows for pneumonia, years ago it was about 15 quid a head. Now we were £3 a head with 10 mils in the water. But what would happen is you'd go in with the homeopathic remedy, it would be multiplying in the troughs over the 6-7 days, even though 5 days was adequate. I've only ever once had somebody phone me up and said, Colin, I've got pneumonia. We would say to the farmers, if you have pneumonia throughout this season, we will come back, we'll take a sample from the nostril of the beast with the pneumonia, and we'll make it up and we'll give it back to you free of charge. Now if it dies, which quite often they did die after being vaccinated with the vets, the vet would put his hand up and say, that's life, But I only had one phone call for a chap up in Cooper, he was about an hour away from me, and his dad for 7 years had used homeopathy and had been at him every year, get onto this stuff. So he says, right, I'm going to try it this year. 200 head of cattle, he tried the pneumonia, end of November, I went up to him, put it in the troughs. He phoned me up beginning of January. He says, Colin, I've got pneumonia. I said, oh, you're joking. Right, isolate the beast, I'll be right up. So I went up to him, he had 4 calves sitting in a pen in the corner. I says, wait a minute, when did you get them? Oh, I got them end of December. So they haven't had the remedy, because we did the remedy November, end of November. No, they haven't. So 5 mil drench over all the 4 calves that he had at the side did the job. But we were prepared to go up there and take a sample and make something up, because it could have been pneumonia with BVD hanging on to it, just something else slightly different, specific to that farm. That's the way homeopathy works. And when we get something that's died of something that's died of a condition, when we take a remedy, it's not like having to get the first hour to find out what it is. Everything that was in that bird or animal is switched on in the remedy. So when we got the young bird sickness remedy, everything that was an issue in that is switched on. So you might find the remedy could have had E. coli in it. Now, E. coli is one of these things that if you get it, you've got a short time to live and you're gone. But it could have been hiding in the background, not growing. So when that remedy was made, E. coli is part of that. So when the Going Light remedy was made, everything that was in that budgie of mine, that the fortunate thing is it was classic Going Light. We sent it down to the labs, they killed it, and the 2 main things they found were Coxie and Megabac. So we knew what was in that. But even if I'd sent that bird down, dead, the remedy would have been the exact same. So with the same symptoms, you find it switches it on. Respiratory this year has been hard because of the hot weather. There's been other issues that have come out, and there's things that are popping out that we haven't seen for a long time. And so if we don't get it right with the first thing, usually the second thing works. So what I've done is I've said to the boys down the labs, I want a triple remedy made up, 2 triple remedies made up. for respiratory. So if it's not one, it's going to be the other, And I send them out free of charge. If the first remedy doesn't work, why should you pay for it? But what I've learned is you've got to get the symptoms right, because there's no point. Boy came up to me at the Stafford show and says, "Oh, I bought your products with the chap in Ireland." He says, "Your going light doesn't work." I says, "Right, what were your issues?" He says, "Oh, I had a goldfinch cock and it was going light, and I put it over its throat and I did it for 5 days, nothing." It says it was scouring everywhere. I said, "Whoa, it was scouring? Yeah, the droppings were loose and all." I says, "That's not going light. That could be scour enteritis. You're given a homeopathic remedy that isn't for the condition." And it was like, "Oh, right enough." I says, "Was it at the seed dish all the time?" No. It was eating okay, but it was still scouring all over the place. Now, if I'd had these symptoms, he went to the boy in Northern Ireland, who's a top man. This guy breeds more rare pheasants than everybody else in the world put together. And I want to support this guy. That's why I've taken him on as my agent, because he's very knowledgeable. But the guy comes in and buys a remedy off the shelf. If it's the wrong symptoms, it's not going to work. That's why I don't put on a website all the remedies and pay here and all the rest, because I'd rather speak to people, to get the proper remedy. So if I'd spoken to the guy, I would ask the questions and scouring, right, okay, send them across the combined scour enteritis, and that's the right remedy for the condition. We're not perfect, but we're learning all the time, and it's just by communication that we're learning to tighten things up to get it right first time, Because with a bird going on well, you don't have a long time. You don't have a long time at all.
You say that you're doing a programme for the pigeon.
Yeah, I'm doing it for everybody.
Ah, right. So is it the same programme, or is it?
It's a programme with choices. The
programme for the canaries or for us will be different to what they.
Yeah, but you make it up yourself, knowing what you have to do, knowing you have to have a period that you're feeding for breeding, you're feeding for molting and building up again, you're feeding for going through a lean spell, and then you're feeding again for building the birds up. That's the same for every type of bird. 2 out of 3 things will switch the bird on, no problem. But you want 3 out of 3 being perfect. Then you've got your best chance.
So the product would be the same for a pigeon as opposed to a canary then?
These products will be the same. Say the environment, you need to have it, fresh every day. That if you don't have it fresh, you're still going to breed birds. But for your own health and the bird's health, you want a fresh environment every day. Nutrition-wise, you want the bird's gut at its optimal, with the billions of good bacteria working away every day.
How does yours compare then again? Because I use oregano.
Right.
Is that a similar sort of thing?
No, it's not really. There's lots of different things, like people feed garlic. All these things are good, but they only do one thing. When you're looking at your diet, you want to make sure you've got all the nutrients there all the time. Say some of these 15 boys added garlic, some of them cod liver oil. They had their own reasons for it, but it's not necessary. There's a lot of products out there that are rubbish, just rubbish. They do one thing. Over the years, I've been approached by I don't know how many companies. Would you promote this product? Would you promote that? I mean, you look at it and it's like, why? You're only claiming one thing. You've got a whole range of things to look at, and it might boost that for a period, but it's not going to be lasting all that time. And again, to me, water is something that you need to keep fresh. You don't want to put anything in the water that stops the bird drinking it, because then you're suppressing the bird, you're putting the bird under stress because there's something that water doesn't like. So you want water fresh. Homeopathic remedies in the water, you don't taste it, you don't smell it, the birds wouldn't even know it's there. But the way it works, it just does the job. Now, the company I deal with and myself, I say this is my 20th year come November. If I was selling mumbo jumbo, I wouldn't be here. You go to the farmers and they'll say, "Oh, you're knocking this 30 times, you have to dance around the trees naked at moonlight." No, but if you want to do that, that's up to you. Just do it. And the good thing about animals is, I've never once asked anybody or whispered on an animal in bird's ear, "You're going to get better." Humans, we're complicated. We take drugs and we take, medicines, we take alcohol, weird and wonderful things. So it's different in humans getting homeopathy correct, though it is good for humans as well. But with animals, it's black and white. They're either ill or they're well. You can't say to them, "You're going to get better because I'm giving you this," and they don't know it just happens, and that's the beauty of it, you know. And some vets don't like us. We've got vets like the vets we use, use homeopathy.
I've took birds to vets, and the only thing they've ever given was Baytril.
Yeah.
And I've paid for autopsies and everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And everything they've ever given is Baytril. If you put the Baytril in the water, it actually makes a foul smell.
Yeah.
And I've tasted it as well.
Yeah.
And it tastes fucking nasty.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
No, it's.
You have to leave it on for 2 days for a bird to even have a drink. Or
Yeah.
take the water off for a full day, then put it on.
Yeah. It's quite scary because when we were at poultry college, every so often we'd have the vets come through. Vets out of 7 years do 6 weeks. It might be different now, but back 20 odd years ago, it was 6 weeks. Sorry, 30 odd years ago. 6 weeks on birds. And then they're going out, and the money's in the small animals. The money's in the farms. So there's very few people specialise in birds, you know. So when you take somebody that's not specialising in birds, you know, they're guessing. You know, they don't have the experience. And some of them own up to it and say, look, I'm not that experienced. Yeah, we'll do this, we'll do that. But you're not getting what you want. You're not getting the answers you want. And I say Baytril, terramycin, auramycin, they're all general kill-all things. You know, see, I know guys that use it every 3 days, you know. But when they go and sell their birds on to other people, you know, it does nothing. It does nothing. You're suppressing it as opposed to building the immune system up. That's the difference. Again, I got lots of people buying birds off the continent, and they're on grog and they're on all sorts of things. And when they get them across here, they don't breed, you know, or they lose them. The birds are then stressed out because what's been suppressing them is gone. And so when you remove something from a bird, something takes its place, you know. I've got 3 boys with a condition that they basically are on antibiotics a lot, or they would be on them a lot. But, you know, we know the effect on them and how they react to it, and so we try avoid them like the plague. But we still need them at times. You know, they do have a purpose. You know, there's some conditions that if you lose them so fast, you want to wipe it out. But then what you want to do is you want to put the remedy on them to turn the immune system on for it. You know, that's what I'm doing with some of the pigeon boys. One guy, super guy, I've been working with him for the last 4 months now, and he's been losing out of 1,000 birds. He's probably lost about 100, 120. And we've got one of the birds, we got a remedy made up, and it seemed to do the job for a lot of them. But there were some of them were too far gone that he had to put something over them. Now we've just, I'm not saying, because this has been recorded, I'm not saying it wasn't who it is, but what he discovered was something so off the wall that you'd never imagine that these birds were suffering from this. But what he's got is he's got the thing to do the job from the outside world, not natural. But he knows for a fact that once he's done that, he's going to put the birds on wormer and clean them all out because of, you know, what they've found. You know, and again, for his environment, this organism is quite scary, and so he wants to get rid of it out of the birds, but he also wants to get it out of the environment. So instead of doing 5 mils, 10 mils per litre spraying around, instead of doing 20 mils for cleaning, he's going to blitz his whole place at 100 mils because it kills coccidiosis, it'll kill worms, it'll fleas, ticks, kill everything. So he wants to get it out of his environment, you know. But looking at the birds and looking at the symptoms, you would never in 100 million years thought it's that. You know what I mean? But only by taking it for an autopsy, they found it out. You know, so it's not. Excuse me. It's not all doom and gloom. You know, our birds can stay perfectly healthy. You know, when we're treated right, but it's only under stress that we have the issues. You know, and if you know what these issues are and when they are, you can switch the immune system on for them. Quite easy.
With your system then, would you still advocate that? Like most of us do, before the breeding season, that we tend to give them a general
clear out,
antibiotic of whatever.
You've knocked a bird back 3 or 4 steps to start with, because you can't all of a sudden just put a pre and probiotic in, because that's active in the gut for 3 to 4 hours. I've seen the results. Everything out there with the electrolytes and vitamins, minerals, trace, everything that you're trying to put in, it's only active in the gut for 3 or 4 hours. So unless you've got that bird on it all the time, you know, it's not going to do a great deal.
Us putting it in, doing it before the breeding season, let's say Christmas, just after Christmas, to clear them out of all the various things, has been basically a waste of time.
Yeah, because you've suppressed it. right?
But we haven't cleared it out.
You haven't
of that.
cleared it out,
How do
and
we clear that out of the bird then?
you don't. You don't. It's like
there
us.
it's there as a permanent thing.
Yeah, birds have got bacteria in them all the time, all the time. So what you want to do, if you get one of your birds, hold it for 10 minutes, take a swab, put it on a petri dish, put it in a growth medium, you'll see what's in that bird.
Yeah, we haven't got them stuff
Yeah,
facilities.
exactly.
So
it's always there.
Is experience and basically guesswork.
Yeah, it's all there. You know.
So what we tend to do is we tend to do a fairly broad spectrum
Yeah.
of all the things that we think might do something.
Yeah.
Because our knowledge is visual and what we have experienced in the past.
Yeah.
So we don't have the facilities to be able to
find out what's in your birds.
Identify what the problem is. So it's like a big broad shovel.
Yeah. Every bird's different. Every shed's different. You know, what you've got on your shed might be different from what's in your shed.
Yeah.
You know, and you've got to find that out somehow. You know, you might have them gasping every December. You know, you might never have had that problem at all. You know, likewise with mite. You might be riddled with mite all the time, and you've had nothing. Every establishment's different. What I've learned with my 3 boys is when they go and get a swab, you know, or a mucus test, if they go into an antibiotic for one thing, when they start to remove that, something else grows that they didn't notice. So if you take something out, it's always replaced. What my eldest son did recently, which is phenomenal, is colloidal silver. He's been inhaling it, you know, nebulizing it, so it's in the lungs. His last 3 results have said no bacteria, no bacteria, no bacteria at all. Colloidal silver is fantastic. If you've got a bird with a bad eye or something like that, or put a wee bit, you know, it's just a couple of drops of colloidal silver on it, and it'll kill any infections. You know, the fact that he's nebulized this and come back with nothing growing is phenomenal. And the lab's like, we don't understand this. He's not told them what they've done. He does things himself that they don't know, but, you know, their health has been up there compared to most. You know, and it's been my oldest son who's done a lot of these things, researching himself. But to have 3 separate swabs over a couple of months having no bacteria is phenomenal. Now, if we could put into our birds inhaling colloidal silver, you know, nebulized, there'd be no bacteria. But unfortunately, there's lots of different things, and I say it's only under stress it rears its ugly head. So that's why I try to keep nutrition right, the environment right, and health right. So when they do come under stress, again, stress reducer is a big difference because your birds aren't going to have that stress for things to multiply. So I say I use it all year round. Stress reducer. I use the 307 and I use the Wormer 306.
307.
Yeah.
What is my ass is 307?
307's going light.
Right.
It's Coxie Megabac is the main 2 in that. I say there will be other things, but we didn't check for them. That we wanted the main 2 things that were causing the bird to go light.
Going light. Now that is something that I have had in 1 or 2 birds that hasn't reared its head in my shed for 10 years, I should think.
Right, that's all right.
And I basically put it down to the heat, the stress. Yes, no?
When birds get stressed, what's in them multiplies, and Coxie is a classic. Coxie will multiply the quickest because it says to itself, this bird, this host is under stress. I need to multiply to get eggs out of this body into another host. That's just the way it works. And Megabac's the same at multiply. You know, if you've got salmonella in your bird, that will multiply, and if that multiplies the quickest, your birds are going to go down with salmonella. You know, it's every bird, every shed's different. You know, but you've got to get to the bottom of your own place.
Because I have been using for quite a few years a product which is called 4-in-1.
Right.
Which you maybe know. It does 4 different elements within the same powder.
Yep.
And as I say, this year I did have 1 or 2 birds that went light.
Yeah.
So whatever that was.
It's the stress of the heat, would say. Every year there's ups and downs, but this year particularly has been bad. But again, I put a bit of blame on the breeders for one thing. When you're selecting birds, you'll go for size, you'll go for feathering, you'll go for shape. Now, quite often, that's a freak compared to the natural canary. So you're breeding something that's not natural. What we need to be looking at the same time is how many eggs they get laid, what's the fertility, what's the hatchability, what's the livability, what's the feeding of the birds themselves. To me, when you get to having to use feeders, you've gone too far. You know, if a bird can't rear its own youngsters, you've gone too far. It's not natural. You know, you can still have your canary. I see more so in the budgies because I've been around them longer. I've seen cock-headed hens that if you don't get them to breed within 9 months, you've no chance. Great for showing, but for breeding, forget it. You know, we'll select a hen that'll lay 2 eggs and it'll hatch a couple of chicks out, and we'll pick the best one for that to move on to our breeding. You're going down a dead end. You know, it didn't lay any more than 2 eggs. You know, the birds aren't natural. We're selecting hens that are more like cocks. The more traits a hen has, the worse you usually find the breeding results are. You know, might be great for the show bench, but for breeding, no. You know, you're going down a dead end. Somebody, which I totally agree with, said, when you're doing birds and you're pairing birds up, you breed cock to cock. And I'm thinking, cocks don't lay eggs. He says, no. You look at the hen's father, and if the hen's father's good, put to that cock, chances are the cock will be good. You know, it doesn't matter what the hens look. He didn't show hens. He just showed cocks. But when you look at the birds outside, the hens are totally different to the cocks. So I remember sitting in a shed as a 12-year-old and the old boy saying, beautiful budgie, you know, nice normal grey, big head on it, carrot shaped, youngsters coming out of the nest, nice good looking birds. He says, I'll show you the hen. Tapped the box. This hen came out. Big beak, tiny head, scrawny. He says, look at the father of this hen. Puts it in a show cage. Nice big cock, you know. So he was breeding cock to cock and looking at the traits of that. He wasn't interested in hens. He says a hen's got to be a hen to breed. If a hen doesn't breed, you're stuffed. So, you know, way back then, you know, that's what he was doing. He's no longer with us, but that's the way he was working it. And I hear one or two other boys saying the same thing. Pair cock to cock, you know. The hen might be the worst hen, but if it's off the good stuff, it's got the genes in it, you know. The same boy, 2 years later, said to me, he says, right Colin, he says, I want you to pick the 10 best cocks in my shed and put them in show cages. So I picked what I thought was 10 best, he put them in show cages. He said, you're not far off. Right, I want the 10 worst cocks. So I picked up what I thought was 10 worst cocks. He says, you're not far off. He says, I'll let you into a secret. They're all related to each other, you know. And quite often over the years, I've heard people saying, you're never happy with what's off the best stuff. The poor brothers and sisters, yeah, they'll probably improve themselves, but you're never happy off the best stuff. And I know boy Jim Shepherd, you know, said to me for years, I used to go in every week to him, and he says, Colin, this boy comes across from Edinburgh every year, buys 2 pairs of birds off me, but he buys the rubbish birds. But he comes back every year and he shows me the youngsters, and some of them are show winners, you know, just crackers, you know. And so there's pre-porting birds out there. They've got the genetics that will pass on what I call the freak genes to produce the best birds, you know, and they'll pass them on every single time. But quite often we sell these birds and we don't realise them, and they go somewhere that they don't get a chance to use them because they've paired them up to something different. Whereas if we were just to hang on to some of these lesser birds, breed them and see what was coming out of them, you know, when you realise you've got a pre-porting bird, it's far too often it's gone before you realise it. So, you know, you've got to have good and bad. I've never been into a top place and I've seen 100% super quality. There's always poor birds, and there's always reasons why these birds are kept, because they're producing the stuff, you know. We're breeding freaks and we have to realise that, but we've also got to realise that we've got to look at our fertility, our hatchability, our number of eggs and all these other things as well, you know, and keep birds the right shape for breeding. keep a hen that's a hen, not a hen that looks like a cock, you know. So it's a lot of hard work, and I take my hat off to you guys, because I say the guys that do the slight things that are right consistently are the guys that are on top, you know. And that's what it's all about. And it's not hard, you know. It's just as easy to do the right things consistently as to do the wrong things consistently, you know. And when you look at Facebook, it scares me sometimes. People have been in it for a couple of years and they've had pretty poor to average results, giving advice to other people. Oh, I would use this, I would use that, I would recommend this. And you look at their posts and it's like, wait a minute, why are you recommending that? Because it's not worked for you, you know. And it's quite scary. I've been fortunate over the years. I've spoken to so many people, and I try to use 2 ears and 1 mouth. It's not easy at times, especially when you hear something that's going wrong. You want to jump back in, but when you hear what's going on and you hear consistent results, it's like, wow, you know, can I bottle that? And I won't be able to bottle it, but what I'm now going to do is put it into a program, and it's taken me a wee bit longer because I want to make it for all types of birds, and I want to make it flexible. So you put yourself where you want to be. If you want to be in the top, which to me is less money and it's less time, which gives you more time doing your birds. But because we've got into habits, you know, I'm going to be slated. I've already been slated by a couple of people. Oh, you're saying don't buy egg food. You know, what we're going to do? I'm not going to put you out to business because there's so many people buying it that I'm not going to change overnight. But if people seriously want good results and to have their birds lasting, these guys were using 8, 9, 10-year-old birds that were still fertile, still laying eggs, of all variety of birds, from pigeons to British to canaries to budgies and, you know, all sorts. It's like, wow. But they've been doing something consistent year after year after year, and they've had the seasons in their birds. Now, a season can be as short as a month, but at least you've done something different to the bird to make something happen in the bird, whether it's to relax the bird and build it up, or to put it through that little lean spell, you know. Because they say overweight birds don't breed as well as birds that are switched on. You know.
I think the problem is with egg food, Colin. I've had this discussion with a few other lads. I put more in the bin than I put in the birds.
Spot on.
The fact I like.
Spot on.
And like, I think the problem with us border breeders is we give them too much.
Yeah, you're right.
We
You're
give
right.
Too much, and with the lack of seasons, what we're having now.
Yeah.
We come off the show bench and we're giving them, oh, they've been at a hard show, a bit of egg food, a bit of grain food,
Yeah.
a bit of this, a bit of conditioning, and the birds are fat now by Christmas.
Yeah.
And there's no winter to take it off.
Yeah.
Insulated bird rooms.
Yeah.
No frosts.
No, you're spot on.
We're going into the season with fat birds now.
Yeah.
And they're not going to breed.
Yeah.
But the problem is we've got so many problems, coupled together with the weather that we've had,
Yeah.
which is just been, this year's the perfect storm.
Oh,
It's been incredible.
Yeah.
And like you say, it's released viruses and bacteria that have been dormant for donkeys.
yeah, you're right. Yeah.
And we've hit so many problems. We're looking at the fancy now and it's disintegrating in front of our eyes because
Decimated.
people are breeding 4s,
Yeah.
3s, and there's numbers of people not bred any.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that to me, I find incredible. I've had a good season, but
Yeah.
it's bloody hard work
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
because I've got to be.
Yeah.
It's tormented me.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking for everything all the time.
Yeah.
But the problem with the border world is we've done so many things. If you look around this room, there's no young people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we've, apart from Richard,
Ah.
and who's Gary and he's impersonating somebody.
Is this a
But
storm?
we've done things
Yep.
Where is the storm
in
from?
the 70s, what we're still doing now.
But the birds moved on.
Yep. And
Birds
the-
move
and
on
the
so
weather's
much.
moved on.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
And the nutrition's moved on.
Yeah. Yeah. Not for the good, I would say.
Because when you were a young boy, and you're talking about when you were, the fields and the stuff was grown on cow shit.
Yeah.
It's not grown on cow shit anymore.
Exactly.
It's grown on
Fertilizers. Yeah.
and all
Yeah.
sorts of the pesticides.
Yeah.
We never had that when we were kids.
No, exactly.
So we've got
Yeah.
all this stuff. We can't go pick wild stuff now.
Yeah.
You daren't.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we're now in a situation now where people are looking to the Border Convention for advice.
Yeah.
But the people on the Border Convention are as old as the people who,
Yeah.
who were looking for the advice, and
Yeah.
they don't know how to change it either.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's almost like we've got to reset everything and
Yeah.
start again.
That's where I take my hat
That's
off
the
to,
biggest problem.
to you guys and say Cleveland to me is a fantastic club. You've got brilliant guys there, and you're all working towards building up. You know, why would you come into a hobby when the birds aren't breeding? You know, that's the problem. Why are people staying in the hobby when it's not? I'm surprised some people are still here when the results have had not just 1 year, but
Don't say that, man.
you know,
I've
you
just come back in after 20 years,
right?
and I think the biggest thing I've noticed is the size of the bird, the
Yeah.
size of the bird.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a lot bigger than it used to be. I think, like you're saying, we're trying to breed a bigger and bigger bird.
Yeah.
And
We're breeding a freak.
Yeah, we're,
Yeah, and even the guys that aren't breeding freaks, they're still having issues, you know. But I go back to we play God. We've got to control it, and the boys that control it with better habits are the ones that are winning, you know. And I say I want them to open up to everybody, not like the pigeon boys. You know, if pigeon boys talk to each other, I'd be sitting in a Caribbean island, you know, just now, because 15 years ago I would have had a remedy for young bird sickness. Money doesn't motivate me, results does, you know. And if you're not getting results, you're not going to be here long. I would say, Ron, the average customer of mine is over 60, the average age.
Must be.
It's quite scary, you know, because I want to still be doing this in 50 years' time when I'm 100. You know what I mean? And I say we need youngsters coming into it. We really do.
Not gonna happen.
Run that,
No,
you know.
no. But the good thing is that there is answers. There is answers out there, but it needs people to put them in place. And I say, you could get by without using any of my products, you know, and you'll still breed birds. But if you want results, and good results and consistent results, put a couple of simple things into place. It's all about setting that bird up to be bulletproof and to survive, you know, going through the stressful times, going through the different seasons, and knowing what you have to do to make the birds go through that. You know, that's the answer. And I say it's for every bird. You know, the amount of pigeon boys that have almost given up this year, and then it's like, such and such told me to phone you. Right, okay, you've got salmonella. Remedy went out. 2 days later, wow, the difference in the bird's unbelievable. You know, I've got one guy that is basically went onto a forum and said, this doctor of 30 odd years that discovered Megabac is rubbish. Contact Colin Leask, he'll sort you out. And it's like, whoa, you know, hold off there. You know, the last thing I want is the mafia at my door saying, you know, what claims you making? You're like, I'm not. You know, but I say it's all about results.
But how do we educate 70-year-old people who are stuck in their ways?
Show them.
Sorry, John, I went you there.
Show them. Show them. Give them an idiot-proof program. I'm quite happy to make a program up for anybody, for nothing.
You see, the problem is, when you're set in your ways, it's very difficult to change it.
You don't advocate no soft food at all.
I'm not going to say in camera no soft food. If you need it because of convenience, then go for it. But what I'm
Well,
putting,
what do you advocate instead of feeding soft
Wheat.
food? You would feed wheat
wheat.
and purely nothing else but wheat.
No, not wheat. And I'd also give them a little bit groats. I'd give them boiled egg. Boiled egg to me replaces the insects because you've got all the nutrients in that yolk that is phenomenal amino acids. You know, you've got to get away from talking about protein. It's about amino acids. And plant-based amino acids are just as good as, you know, protein from animals, you know. But say, we're dealing with birds. If a yolk can take it from a few cells to day old, and it's not including the white, you add the white to that, how much further is that going to take it in 14, 20 days to set the whole bird up with the right nutrients so that that bird is going to go on for 10, 12 years? Instead of feeding it filler that's going to take the bird on, you know. We're resilient, birds are resilient. We survive on very little nutrition, but we're not at our peak. You know, if I eat rubbish food, I know about it. You know, if I eat healthy food, I know about it because I feel so much better, my joints and, you know, just the energy and everything. It's the nutrients we put in that's going to make the difference to the birds. Again, it's going back to being palatable, nutritious and digestible. You want all three. You'll have an egg food that'll be a wee bit palatable because you waste a lot, a wee bit nutritious. It's not all getting digested. You don't pour water back onto a dried egg and all of a sudden turns to life again with all the amino acids and trace elements in that. But you've got that in the yolk, you've got that in the white, and it's fresh. And when you boil it, it's easy digested. Now, if you leave a boiled egg out, even cut open, and leave a raw egg out, bacteria is more attracted to the raw egg as a growth medium than what it is to the boiled one, you know. But it's still super nutrients for your birds. And I say salmonella shouldn't be an issue. Shouldn't be an issue at all.
You know, you're saying about wheat then.
Yep.
Would you advocate just using ordinary bread as a substitute?
Bread's okay, but bread's processed, and it's got additives in it, and it's got sugar in it. Whereas the wheat itself, it's got all the nutrients in that grain. It's got the wheat germ, it's got everything. People say, oh, I feed couscous. You know what couscous is?
Yeah.
Durum wheat.
Yeah.
So why would you get something that's been processed when you can have the whole food? You know, it's as simple as that. It's keeping it fresh, keeping it whole. Best nutrients.
What about printed oatmeal corn?
Fine. Again, I would soak it. I would soak it for even half an hour, let it dry out and feed it the next day, because it's starting the germination process. You don't want to sprout everything. To me, if you sprout it, you've gone too far. You've still got good nutrients, but it's not the same as the germination, you know.
So when you talk about soak seed, I know you're not advocating a whole bundle in one thing.
Yep.
How would you do your soak seed?
I soak it. I've got different pots. I'll soak enough that I need for the day. The next day, I'll soak enough I need for the next day. I'll do the next day. I'll rinse the one out that's been soaked for 2 days. Rinse it 2 days. Hot water, leave it for 2 days. It's getting up to its maximum, you know, what it can absorb. In a half an hour, it'll still absorb something. In a day, it'll still absorb something. But I like with budgies. Budgies to me are dehydrated all the time. We put so much feather on the birds, and they don't drink that much, you know. Budgies are nomad. They fly over the place, they'll quickly go down and get a drink of water, fly around. But what these budgies are compared to what we've got is night and day. And it's quite scary, you know. And yet we're still feeding the diet of the birds we had when I was a kid, you know. And they brought out other things that are adequate. Classic one. What's the green and the yellow pellets? Is it pearl morbid? Yeah. Now, I was crossing Ireland at the time, and somebody told me, I won't say the name, but he says, I'm feeding this as the egg food now. This is all I feed them. He said, what do you think? Now, he'd had issues this year for the first time, and it's the first time he used that. He had another thing that was going on, but he showed me the bag, and I says, right, it says Italy, but it's manufactured in the USA. Right? It says, ingredients of food are the same in everything for animals and birds and ourselves. You list the most ingredients to the least ingredients. So I looked at this and says, right, it's in the USA, and the most ingredient is maize, corn. Then you've got wheat, and then you've got oats, and then you've got A, B, C. Oh, you've got an embalming fluid. That's the preservative. No wonder it's good for 12 months, right? So all these additives and preservatives. What's the option? What's the availability in the digestive system of them? We don't know. Chances are every of the three main ingredients is genetically modified, coming from the States, because there's very little across there, you know, and they just get swallowed up if they are, and they just take over. So you've got stuff that's genetically modified. Corn, I wouldn't give corn as the main ingredient to any bird, you know. Okay to peck around with and play around with, but it's not the best nutrients. Wheat, that's okay, but that's second. Your oats is okay, but that's third. And how much is in it, percentage-wise, compared to the corn? So what you've got is, again, going back to the Yorkshire pudding and roast beef and that, you've got something that's processed to the hilt to get into tiny pellets, and the nutrients aren't there. So you're relying on your birds feeding their chicks nothing but that. What are your chicks going to be like in 2 years' time, if that's been the foundation? Forget all that, it's silly money a bag, and go for your wheat. You know, the nutrients are there. Soak it, change the nutrients, you know, start the germination process. You're setting the building blocks of the bird up for day one. Add the egg, you know, No mention of egg in this. It was just these three main ingredients. You know,
I don't like it.
scary. It is scary, the fact that people are promoting it.
I know some people that love it.
Yeah,
Right, I just don't, for some reason, I just don't like it.
yeah,
And I can't explain it to you why, but
yeah.
the birds just don't seem to take it as
Doesn't
well as
appeal to
the
them,
other
yeah.
stuff.
But to change what you were doing for years and get good results, to go on to that on its own is scary, you know. And you wonder why we have issues. You know, there's loads of things. People say, oh, apple cider vinegar, I do use garlic. They're all there for a reason, but to me, you want to keep the gut healthy. Why would you upset the gut twice a week by putting apple cider vinegar in? Because it does change the gut. You know, why would you do that? Because somebody recommended it for one reason? You know, it just doesn't make sense. You know, I used to, as a kid, you know, I'm even looking at the way I keep birds now, and I'm changing things about. I remember as a kid going around all these different places. You know, every day I was in somebody's shed to help clean them out, or just like a sponge learning. And you used to have all the concoctions. I used to have my Abbey Deck, you know, bottles, and I had my Kilpatrick's vitamins, I had my yeast, and I had all these, because I was like absorbing all this, and I used to do all these wee things. It's not needed. But the other thing as well is, our bird rooms should be bird rooms, not storage for everything that we keep. Because when you get mites, it's not just on the birds, it's everywhere. I remember as an 8-year-old coming in and picking up my vitamins to put some drops in, and seeing mites on the bottle, you know, and realising I had it in the old shed, like, you know. We need to make our birds bird rooms and keep everything else out. And, you know, it could be sectioned off, but keep it out. So it's saving us time and hassle, but it's keeping the atmosphere and the environment right as well. You know, when you're running about, mucking about looking for cages or this or that, it's all upsetting the birds. The only time I've ever lost birds is when I've gone on holiday. Because somebody new comes in and they don't do the same routine as you do. And the birds get upset and stressed out, and by the time you come back 2 weeks later, oh, that bird died and that bird died, you know. And I know for a fact if I'd been in there myself, nothing would have changed. You do the same things. You know. It's habits, good habits, make all the difference. And then you look at all these other things and say the programme will be, this is the ultimate foods, this is the nutritional foods, these are lesser, these are lesser, these are lesser. I'm not trying to put anybody that produces egg food out of business. There will be people that need it. But when you look at things logically and simply and look at your pocket, you don't need to be a Scotsman to appreciate it. If you can buy fresh and it's cheaper than processed, what are you going for?
When is this programme going to be available?
Hopefully for Cleveland. I'm looking to have it ready for Cleveland next week.
Right.
So, good excuse to go to Cleveland now.
Yeah, we'll do go up there.
That's
Maybe
grand.
not for a year or two,
I'm
but
trying to push you on.
Well,
you want to build some more staging.
we're going to have a question and answer thing. We've got a Fife guy, a border guy, the secretary of the Border Convention. If you would like to sit on that, here you go.
More than happy to.
I know you can have your stall next
Yeah.
to yourself,
No, that's grand.
and if you want to sit there, and you can pick up on things that some other
Yeah.
people can't answer.
No, I'm more than happy, Ron. See,
I know you're going to be there anyway.
I don't know everything, but I'm always learning, and that's the beauty of it. When you quite often you learn from people's mistakes, you know, like the guy using aniseed every three days.
Wish somebody in Cleveland could learn that.
Listen, I take my hat off. I really do take my hat off to you guys, because you've got a cracking club there, and you're progressive. And there's so few clubs. Oh, we don't get speakers because nobody comes. Nobody's coming because you've no speakers. Oh, I never thought of that. You know.
We used to have them years ago, didn't we, Ron? Then it fell off.
Well, the problem was, Bob, we had 200 border breeders in Cleveland, now we've got 10.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Massive
Who do
difference.
you get?
Massive
You don't
difference.
ask somebody to come on a wet Wednesday night from the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
No, that's right.
You know what I mean?
That's right.
You know, so it's very, very difficult to get people to speak.
Yeah. What I'm looking
But
to
that's
do,
what we've got to do, you're right.
what I'm looking to do, Ron, is I've got the facilities to do webinars, so we can get 1,000 people looking on to a couple of speakers. You know, if we can set that up, you know, once in a while, that would be good,
Yeah,
just to
brilliant, yeah.
get people up. When I learn how to work it, I'll be back on to you. But no, it's not rocket science. But the good thing is, it can be recorded. So then we could put it on YouTube, so people who missed it can still see it. And then when the next one's going to happen, they can look back at that and say, oh, such is speaking, that's good, let's get on to that, you know.
The other problem that we've got is trying to set this up. It might take off at Cleveland, it might not take off.
Yep.
It all depends on the people,
Yep.
whether they want to engage or not.
Yep. Again, it's publicity, you know. Facebook to me is brilliant. I haven't pushed myself in years, and you know, people say, why do you not promote this, promote that? Because people are seeing results. I've never been pushy, you know, word of mouth spreads it. But now I've gone on Facebook and seen the feedback and getting even more good results. I'm thinking I need to push it. There's plenty of people keeping birds, but they're not going to clubs. We need to encourage them to go to clubs, and if that means by putting a webinar on, so they'll see it advertised on Facebook and all the rest and all these social medias, tune into it, see some of these top people talking, and maybe encourage them to go and support the local club.
See, the point I made to John and Gary there, we were at Stafford last week. How many people were there?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they say bird keeping's dying.
Exactly.
It certainly isn't.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because it was like Wembley Stadium.
Yeah, yeah. And you go around all these clubs, like we've got an issue going on. I think every single weekend in Scotland in the Central Belt, there's a sale going on. And so these people flirt from sale to sale to sale to see what's for sale, you know. And it's alive.
They're just not showing them.
It's alive, yeah, you're right.
There's a dozen birds here running on Facebook with nothing with us, isn't there?
Yep.
Middlesbrough, Stock,
We don't even know who they are.
We've got to marry the old with the new. You know, when I tried to set up Birds First, at the time, I had a lot of interest of people, but after the initial interest, there's nothing happened. You know, I want to encourage these people online to come into meetings and join clubs and all the rest, because they've got so much to give that's different, but we need to do the right thing to bring them in. And I've had a few issues family-wise that I've had to put to the back burner, but I still want to bring it to life again, because if we don't and nobody does anything, I might be speaking to 2 people next year as opposed to you guys. You know. Anybody got any other questions?
What's your thoughts on natural bits and minerals for canaries?
Definitely.
What's the, just keep it constantly or?
Birds in the wild have availability to a lot of things,
Right.
and we need to give the same things to our birds. And grit and a source of calcium is one of them. You know, it's never been noted in the wild that birds all of a sudden, hens all go for calcium. You'll hear in these documentaries, and all the parrots are going to the clay because they've just eaten acidic nuts, so they're going to the clay. But you don't hear them saying, oh, and they're away to look for this seed or this plant because it's got, you know, a bird will take every single ounce of calcium in its bones to put a shell around an egg before it doesn't put a shell around an egg. That's just the instinct of the bird. So you've got to provide it with stuff that it might not touch 300 days a year, but the 65 days that it is going at it, you don't see it. You know. So I use a grit from John O'Groats and I use a grit from Crail. So it's 2 different types of grits, you know. And to be honest, the last couple of years has got worse for plastic. You know, you see the plastic, it's shocking. But you know, when you're shoveling your bucket full of grit up for the year, you're starting to see more and more stuff through it. So when it's getting sieved thoroughly now. But yeah, cuttlefish, spinach, broccoli, all these things have calcium in it, you know. But it needs to be daily, you know. You can't say, oh, I'm not giving you grit this week. Why not? This might be the week you went for 2 days out of the week. You know? So yeah, and it's not expensive, you know, but it needs to be there for the birds. Variety is brilliant, but the trouble is if you give too much variety in food, the birds will pick what they like as opposed to what they need, you know. And if they're just picking one thing, you know, I put separate dishes in. I used to put plain canary and millet, white millet. I hate spending 20% buying a mixed seed when I can mix it myself. So you buy them separate, you put them down, you see what the bird likes. Some will just take all the millet, some will just take plain canary. But it's not good for them. I would rate the millet over the plain canary, but if birds are taking all that, they're not getting all the nutrients. So that's why you want to give a variety, but a limited variety. Change it throughout the year when you change the seasons, but make it limited so they're not gorging on one thing. You know. But yeah, all the time. Very tame and quiet crowd today.
protecting all in.
Well, this has been recorded. I'll get my son to edit a wee bit, you know, and then I'll put it online. I'll put it on your site as well if you want, Ron,
Yeah.
for anybody to go and have a look.
Cool.
You know. What scared me was down at Mid-Essex. I don't know if you've seen the Mid-Essex talk I did. I would say don't use heavy machinery when you're watching it. If you fall asleep to that, it creates some damage, you know. But I've had people phone me up and say, Colin, I've seen it 3 times and I'm still getting stuff out of it, you know. But to be honest, what I've learned so much more by speaking to these 15 guys since that talk that's just blown me away. I'm really annoyed I didn't ask them all the same questions 5 years ago, because I could have saved a lot of birds and a lot of heartache, you know. And it's not by what I've done. I do these things as well, but it's getting the confirmation from all these other guys doing the same thing. But it's consistent good habits that make it the whole season. Not just a couple of days doing this, a couple of days doing that. It's consistency.
Full-time job.
Yeah, it is. It is. God doesn't fall asleep and say, I'm not feeding the wild birds today, you know. Doesn't happen. We go away on holiday, we'll double up because we're going away for 2 days, you know. We have to do that because we're living lives, but they all have little consequences when we do. Like I say, I hate going on holiday. Don't tell my wife this, I hope she doesn't see this. I hate going on holiday because I know for a fact I'm coming back to something not right. And it's usually your best birds, because your best birds are the most stressed out because they've got all the things we put on them, feathering and all the rest, size, you know.
Excuse me, I'll have to go
No
for a
problem.
walk.
I'm going away more often.
But no, my phone's there anytime you've got any questions, any issues.
Just one issue, like Bob went into hospital, serious complaint.
Yeah.
And they'll aspirate more birds than what he does.
Listen, I'd be booking yourself in
We'll have to